Hello? Why can't it detect my mouth? Talk. 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 Oh, shame. Shame. Hello. 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 Whatever. That'll have to do. No, that won't do. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. Hello? Hello? Detect my mouth, please. This is of so little consequence. This is of so little consequence. Oh my goodness. This is of so little consequence, but I am going to keep trying to figure it out. Okay. Talking. Well, I guess that is just how it's gonna have to be for now. Okay, that's fine. Um, all right. Let's get this set up. Um, while I'm setting this up, let me talk about what I'm doing and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Um, okay, scenes. We're gonna duplicate. Read on. Yeah. All right. Sources. Oh goodness. Oh goodness. This is really what I'm doing today. I'm so excited. Actually, I sound like I'm making fun of myself, but actually this is fantastic. This is a fantastic idea. How do I transform? Just a crop button, scale, filters, property. There we go. All right. Okay. So, um, so, um, here's what we're doing. Okay, I said I was going to explain it, but I'm not very good at multitasking and talking while I explain things. I guess I'm going to have to get better at that. Um, there is no one in the chat right now to tell me if my stuff is working, but I'm just going to kind of assume it is. Um, I'll just check. I'll check in real quick. Check in real quick. Pop the headphones on. See what we got. Hello, test. Oh, okay. Everything's good. Everything's good. Everything's wonderful here. All right. So what am I doing? Um, so I have been, I have an interest in philosophy. Um, that, it's been an interest of mine for a long time, but I like, in the sense that it was something that I thought about and cared about ostensibly. But within the last, sorry for clearing my throat. Within the last year, I have um taken up last year and a half. I don't know. I'm doing that. I did not plan this out. Did not plan this is done on a whim. Um, I have taken up reading philosophy as a kind of like a kind of more serious endeavor as part of my like personal self development. Um, and I gotta. Anyway, and I'm anal about my VTuber model. So the and I've been reading various philosophy texts across different kind of traditions and trying to synthesize ideas and kind of I want to understand the world. More than anything else, I have this really deep desire to understand the world. And in Tomberg's book Meditations on the Tarot, he talks about um, the kind of the outlook of the Hermeticists um, is it's this hunger to understand all of reality, but this kind of the this kind of Socratic humility of like I know nothing, but I can know all things. And this is kind of I think about that phrase a lot. I know nothing, but I can know all things. And it's this kind of like this is kind of bounce back and forth between this kind of really intense desire for understanding things and a humility about feeling like I don't have any idea what's going on with anything. And I think people people go online, and I'm sorry, I got a lot of allergies today. People go online and they get into all these arguments about politics and the nature of ethics. These are maybe two of the biggest things: is ethics and politics, and sort of takes about what's going on with reality, and um, they just never have any idea what they're talking about, or and no one has any idea what they're talking about. But there's this kind of confidence in people who are getting their information sourced from like just stuff that they saw that they have been fed that's been put to them in their feeds, right? Just in their kind of internet feeds. And there is this kind of apparatus via that the state and the system kind of feeds information to people, and they kind of repeat these phrases that are just kind of like echoes of ideas that have been kind of bouncing around in politics for the last oh, we're broken. Oh, we're back. Okay. That's silly. Um, and they just don't have any context for where these ideas were born or what they really mean. And they often don't think about the fact that a lot of the things that they're repeating are just um they don't they've kind of exhausted themselves in history. And they don't mean what they think they mean anymore, or that they like that they've been the power of these of certain words and ideas has been neutralized by the march of history, and um, that you have to, if you want to think something new and you want to say something new, that you have to like actually sit down and you have to do the hard. Oh, hi, welcome in. Um, uh, you have to do the hard work of actually sitting down and reading books and thinking through things, and reading history, reading philosophy. Thank you. And trying to understand the world in a way that goes beyond just kind of like repeating platitudes that you hear on the internet. And even if you think really sincerely about them, there's something that is the nature of reality itself has changed over the last 200 years, and in a very kind of accelerating way in the last 70 years or so in particular. And people don't really know how to think about this. And I think that a lot of people. So, and anyway, so I've been very influenced by the kind of. Oh, my throat is so. It's a bad day to have sinus drainage. Whatever. This had to be this first stream had to be bad no matter what. Um, the there is a there is what was I gonna say? So people who are left wing, people who are generally left, like a lot of people who are left wing are either they're kind of either espousing liberal progressive ideas wholesale, um, and you know, of course, I don't agree with them wholesale, but you know, of course, I'm a, you know, to speak very clearly, I'm a trans woman. I am, you know, homosexual. I, you know, I like all sorts of weird stuff. I, you know, care about the rights of racial minorities and gender minorities, and I and I think that there is this kind of emancipatory movement of history, and that is possible in government, and you know, I care about being sensitive to people's feelings and all these kind of things. But there is something very there's aspects of progressivism that go in question, and then the other strain is that there are, and it's these things that people repeat that they just kind of get from someplace and haven't fully dug into, like why do we care about these things, and like in its and it has this historical connection to our system of liberalism and the progression of human rights and capitalism, and the way but people haven't really thought about the role of capitalism in it all. And then the people who have thought about the role of capitalism in it all tend to go to they start repeating Marxist points. And I think that Marxism is also like mostly true. And people don't. But the thing is, a lot of people who think through Marxism are just kind of repeating, they're just repeating these talking points, um, that have been kind of, history has neutralized them. History has neutralized the talking points. Even if the ideas behind them still have power, history has neutralized the ability to kind of get somewhere just kind of repeating these platitudes. And especially when you're doing it on the internet. And so, and I think that engagement, basically what I'm getting to is the engagement with the text, with texts is really important. Philosophy texts, the engagement in particular, the reason I chose this text as my first thing to do is engaging with postmodernists. Like, if there is anyone who was, you know, postmodern is kind of it's a complicated term in terms of what it really means and who's really a postmodernist and what even, if there's anyone who's a postmodernist, it's Baudrillard. Baudrillard is if anyone's a postmodernist, it's Baudrillard, right? He articulates what has happened with reality under capitalism better, in terms of like the, oh my god, why does she, what's happened with my camera that it keeps doing this? I do not understand. This is so silly. I'm being, my system is very deeply against me. Come on. Oh, come on. I can't. I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna fix it. I swear I'm gonna fix it. Oh, I gotta have my girl. It's so important. It's so important to have her and have her working properly. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Are we back? Yes. Well, see, the thing is, this is a bit, but it's also deeply serious. Okay, I've been watching a lot of content from Theory Underground lately. Theory Underground is a YouTube channel and basically an online school, where they talk about philosophy and critical theory, and they're developing a theory of called time energy, which is I think is very very critical and important. That's combining anyway, but they one of the things that he does is that he will do exegetical readings of philosophy texts. Exegesis is when you read a text closely and you kind of try to bring out meaning from the words and kind of bring in outside information to kind of understand the text more closely. But basically the idea is, okay, well, if he can, it's part of his the classes that he teaches, where they're, that he has this kind, he's geared towards working class people who don't necessarily have the time and energy to read philosophy texts to keep up with the classes, but then they can at least listen to him read some of the excerpts and get a little morsel. They can listen to it. They have, he says a lot, the earbud at work or something like this. They can get a little morsel of the text. But another point that he makes is that there's all sorts of kind of mystique around philosophy and nonfiction texts where people are very afraid of them because, like, what could a philosophy book. Like maybe you have an interest in philosophy, but the idea of what could even be in a philosophy book, that sounds terrifying. That sounds terrifying. Like, where do you even begin? They're going to call you, you're going to open it up and they're going to call you an idiot. Who wants to get called an idiot? You know? But the truth of the matter is that all these philosophers, they're just, they're just, they're just stupid guys like us. They're just stupid guys like us who are trying to understand the world. And they may use all sorts of jargon, and they may kind of be involved in academia in a way which means where they're kind of speaking to other academics and they're actually not speaking clearly or all this sort of stuff. But ultimately, philosophy is for everyone, and I think everyone should be reading philosophy and thinking about philosophy and also thinking about history and science and math because these all intersect with philosophy. Philosophy is kind of like the thing that sits in between history and science and math and kind of like tries to bridge the gap between those things and what it means to live a good life, right? This question of a life well lived, and what does that mean? And there's this aspect of that. Yeah. I don't know about Less Wrong, but Theory. I highly recommend Theory Underground's. He's got a lot of stuff for free on his YouTube channel. A lot of the stuff on his website is paid, but the thing is if you're poor, you can email him and ask for a quote unquote scholarship, and he'll let you into the classes for free, pretty much. Because it's like he's geared towards working class people. Like he used to work at Amazon warehouse. Like that's his whole deal. This is um Anyway, so uh, demystifying philosophy texts, and giving people a little. And so the thing is giving people a little nugget of information is another thing. I also like want to specifically make philosophy videos. I want to make videos about philosophy, and theology, and self-development and creative self-development. And I want to do this in connection with my music. I'm deeply inspired by Hunter Hunt Hendricks of liturgy. But anyway, and this is a skill that I want to develop. And I already have these streams, and I have a couple of followers. I got a couple of people who care. I don't know if they're gonna pop in to listen to me talk about, annoying Frenchmen, but I care the French guys, the German guys. They're they're baby. They're baby. You look at those guys. You look at them. You look at them. I don't know. Like anyway, the um that's not actually how I feel. But I care about ideas. I care about ideas. I want to understand the world. I desperately want to understand the world. And I think everyone should want to understand the world and have a passion for thinking about themselves and challenging themselves and trying to kind of like open up your mind, even if something that's a little scary, a little dangerous, a little subversive. Like, it's so important to not be kind of trapped in like thinking just one way, or to just think that you have it all figured out, or think that you're kind of in this social space where you've got all the answers and everyone else is wrong. Like, because the thing is, even if you do have better answers than everyone else, there's more to think about. There is this constant process of thinking and doing in a feedback loop that is happening in the world all the time. And if you are not kind of tuned into it, then you are being left behind. And you don't want to be left behind. You want to be an active participant in the world where you understand what's going on. And in America, we have this is all goodness. I've been talking for like a half an hour, and I haven't even started reading the text. But in America, they kind of you're kind of pitched in this idea as of like, being a good citizen means that you like keep up with the news, and that you get into political arguments with I don't know, your peers online about really kind of minute stuff, or that you have these very like, have very strong opinions about how if if VTuber models' heads are allowed to be neotenous or not. This is politics in America. But anyway, the Why did I? Okay, all right, all right, all right. I should have planned this a little bit. Why are we reading Simulacra and Simulation? Postmodernism, very important to engage with. I think people don't think about like an actual postmodern text like this enough because they're too busy. Like they're thinking about liberal progressive talking points and they're thinking about Marxist talking points and they're not thinking about the fact that there's been a shift. There's been a shift, and you can read other thinkers who talk about this shift. But Baudrillard puts it very. I remember this text being depressing, but not particularly difficult. I've read it before. I think I've read the first couple of chapters twice. Couple of essays. It's a series of essays. This and I but he does a very very good job of articulating just the kind of felt sense of the state we're in right now. And reading it is very, it kind of, it's unnerving, it's disturbing. And I think a lot of people think about Baudrillard in Simulacra and Simulation, and they think about like the Matrix and they think about virtual reality. The thing is, so they've totally missed the point. They've totally missed the point. The Matrix is actually like not really Simulacra and Simulation because the Matrix is actually kind of it's much more like Marxist, right? Baudrillard is past that. Baudrillard is past that stuff. All that proletarian freedom, the world that we're gonna reestablish and all this stuff. That stuff's gone. That stuff's gone. There's no waking up. There's no waking up. There's no real to return to, right? That Baudrillard has a very very different idea than this kind of idea that like, okay, there's this kind of ideological slumber that you can wake up from to see true reality and kind of make a difference in the world. Like that the like Matrix is much more, it's much more hopeful. It's much more Marxist. It's kind of it's of course very Christian. It's a deeply Christian movie. And but the anyway, that's neither here nor there. But this is in its virtual reality, people thinking about virtual reality. There is this kind of glee that Baudrillard has about the changes that have happened in the world, but also there's also like there's this deep kind of woe, like this. I remember this text just being deeply deeply filled with woe, and I think is very very important to internalize and to understand and to kind of really, really feel what we've lost. Because there's a lot of people talking about return and all this stuff, and there's right wing and left wing versions of this. There's trads, but there's also oh my god, bring me back to the 2000s Sparkle Dog emo crap, right? Like and there's people kind of reminiscing about their own younger self. There's all sorts of there's all this kind of ideas of an imagined time when stuff was actually real, and we've moved into unreality. And then there's this counter hope with virtual reality that people like to invoke Baudrillard. They never read Baudrillard and talking about Baudrillard and virtual reality. Oh my god! Even though there is like his text does point towards this, but the thing is that there's no the for him, we are already in this state. We are already in virtual reality. That is him describing where we have already come to. We've already come to, and just this becoming actualized in a way where it's more obvious to everyone is not. This is not really that. This is this the and he doesn't describe it in terms of like this wonderful thing where we're kind of we're escaping bounds. It's we have moved into something that we have moved into the territory of the uncanny. We have moved into a territory where we don't know what's happening. We don't know where we are. Like there is no grounding whatsoever, and it is and maybe it's exciting, but it's also more than anything it's really really uncanny. And I think a lot of people feel this, but they don't know how to articulate it. All right. All right. All this said, let's read. What time is it? 8:34 here. Okay. Let me okay, I'm going to get some more water. Um I'm going to get some more water and blow my nose, and then I will be back, and then we're going to actually start reading. All right, let's read Simulacra and Simulation together. Okay, now, okay. I didn't think about this enough beforehand. Are we gonna read? Okay, let me think about which ones of these are my favorites, so I can figure out which ones I read. We'll read the first one. I definitely want to read the advertising one. That one's, I really love the advertising one. Because I think that one is actually maybe the most, to me, that one's the most kind of, the holograms one is also maybe good because that kind of gets the, no one cares about Crash. We're not going to read Crash. Let's just start with the first one and then we'll figure out what we want to do next. First essay. Oh my god. The procession of simulacra begins with a quote. The simulacra is never what hides the truth. It is truth that hides the fact that there is none. The simulacra is true. Is everything working? Yes. Okay. If once we were able to view the Borges fable in which the cartographers of the empire draw up a map so detailed that it ends up covering the territory exactly, the decline of the empire witnesses the fraying of this map little by little and its fall into ruins, though some shreds are still discernible in the deserts. The metaphysical beauty of this ruined abstraction, testifying to a pride equal to the empire and rotting like a carcass, returning to the substance of the soil, a bit as the double ends by being confused with the real through aging. As the most beautiful allegory of simulation, this fable has now come full circle for us and possesses nothing but the discreet charm of second-order simulacra. Okay, do I want to unpack the first paragraph? We're going to stop in the first paragraph already. So I don't know this fable, but so we have this image already of it's okay. I mean, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and I'll learn how to figure out how much I'm gonna be commenting on this. This is an experiment. So we have this image already of a of a double. So we have a reality, and then we have a double of reality, and then the double gets confused for reality, but the double is itself kind of decaying, and so this is a wonderful image to open up with. So we have so this idea of a secondary copy, like that there is this kind of like that there is this kind of symbolic double of the world, and that this is what exists now, and what capitalism has produced through the need for like the kind of anyway. I'm going to keep reading. I'm not going to comment too much. Oh man. Okay, this is an experiment. It's okay. It's okay. Today, abstraction is no longer that of the map, the double, the mirror, or the concept. Simulation is no longer that of a territory, a referential being, or a substance. It is the generation by models of a real without origin or reality, a hyper-real. The territory no longer precedes the map, nor does it survive it. It is nevertheless the map that precedes the territory, the procession of simulacra, that engenders the territory, and if one must return to the fable, today it is the territory whose shreds slowly rot across the extent of the map. It is the real and not the map whose vestiges persist here and there in the deserts that are no longer those of the empire, but ours, the desert of the real itself. And that's where the line in the Matrix is from. In fact, even inverted, Borges's fable is unusable. Only the allegory of the empire, perhaps, remains, because it is with this same imperialism that the present-day simulators attempt to make the real, all of the real, coincide with their models of simulation. But it is no longer a question of either maps or territories. Something has disappeared. The sovereign difference between one and the other, the constituted that charmed, That constituted the charm of abstraction. Because it is difference that constitutes the poetry of the map and the charm of the territory, the magic of the concept and the charm of the real. This imaginary of representation, which simultaneously culminates in and is engulfed by the cartographer's mad project of the ideal coextensivity of the map and territory, disappears in the simulation whose operation is nuclear and genetic, no longer at all specular or discursive. It is all of metaphysics that is lost. No more mirror of being and appearances, of the real and its concepts, no more imaginary coextensivity. It is genetic miniaturization that is the dimension of simulation. The real is produced from miniaturized cells, matrices, and memory banks, models of control, and it can be reproduced an indefinite number of times from these. It no longer needs to be rational, because it no longer measures itself against either an ideal or negative instance. It is no longer anything but operational. In fact, it is no longer really the real, because no imaginary envelops it anymore. It is a hyperreal, produced from a radiating synthesis of combinatory models in a hyperspace without atmosphere. Okay. Okay. So I think I want to break this down a little bit. And so, oh, I might need to fix her. Okay. Anyway, so we have oh my goodness. Okay, so we have this kind of classical dichotomy of we have reality, and we have representation. And so you could think about this in a number of ways. So there's the terms like so in like the 20th century, there's like the signified and the signifier, or you could think about it in terms of so this is like oh shoot, I had another good example. You could think about it in terms of like so like on the side of representation, this is where he talks about let's see, so he gives a list of things that is no longer where's the where's these, oh, I can't find it. Man, I can't really find the word. Okay, but anyway, and so but we have here we have science, art, philosophy, and so he talks about the magic of the concept and the charm of the real, right? And so his idea here is that like in the classical there's this you can think about it in terms of like, so when you think about a really good piece of art, doesn't just like it's not like there's this classical idea that when you represent reality, you're there's this cleverness involved. And there is this like what makes it good is that it points to reality, but isn't reality, and that that like you that the distance that you feel between the two things makes it better somehow, that like the fact that it manages to capture reality without being reality itself, right? Like where you're kind of you can think about like, oh, what's nice about, anime girls don't look like women in the real world, right? They don't look like women in the real world, but you've abstracted away from them to kind of pull out features that like you capture the essence of what we, people, you know uh people with good tastes who love women, you know what I mean? Where you you're abstracting features out from what you see from the real world into a representation, and that there's something gleeful and joyous about cutting into reality with your depiction of it, either through a concept or a piece of art. But it is the joy of doing this is very much dependent on the idea that there is a reality to cut into, that there is a distinction between what you're doing and the thing in itself, right? An idea. This is getting articulated by like Kant, is that like we about the things for us and things in themselves, and then like the kind of moment of capital is is best expressed, but there becomes a confusion where like the this distinction collapses. And then I actually thought kind of wanted to read the introduction to Hegel's Phenomenology of Spirit today, but that would have been a whole other nightmare, because that's a much more difficult text than this, and it's been it's been longer since I've read it, and I under the but and then you'd have to give more context, and it's just a much harder text. I feel like this is a much more accessible text, even though there's all sorts of big words in here already. But anyway, so the distinction between reality and representation, and he is asserting that it is gone. It's gone. So all that is left is representation. Reality, that's gone. So there's been this movement where these two things kind of developed in parallel with each other, and maybe they affected each other, right? Because ideas can influence reality, and then there's kind of the material. There's the material and the ideal, and like there's this kind of movement back and forth between them, this dialectical process or whatever. But then eventually, at some point, there is this kind of inversion where they pass into each other, and the ideal kind of emerges on its own, it starts running on its own. This dichotomy is also an important concept in Mahayana Buddhist lineages. It's the focus of the Diamond Sutra. Their focus doesn't expand upon imagery, but kind of focus on the idea of all perception as representation. It's a long text, but it ends with a summarizing poem. Like a tiny drop of dew, or a bubble floating in a stream, like a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, or a flickering lamp, an illusion, a phantom, or a dream, so is all conditioned existence to be seen. Oh, thank you for that. Yeah. So, yeah. This idea that like, we're we have, and so you have to think about the emergence of the yeah, and like there's different forms of this idea, and it's interesting to bring up like a Buddhist conception of this idea, because like they're kind of before science, there's different understandings of the relationship we have to reality, right? Because you could imagine a naive conception of our access to reality, that like we can really know how things are just by interacting with them, right? Because there is this kind of, there is a felt sense that we have of the spiritual interconnectivity of the world, right? Like, I believe in God, and I think that this is true, and that there is this kind of sense in which everything is connected. And you can kind of take that in two directions. You can either kind of see that like this kind of immediate sense of connection is like the truth, right? And that like, what things are through your interaction with them. Or you can take the opposite sense, and you know that like, but through knowing that there is some kind of plentitude within yourself that is not accessible to the outside, or through that like in things there's a plentitude that's not accessible to you, and through like the fact that like, the suffering of the world, and like the fact that we have senses of things that are higher than us but that we can never quite reach, you can then come to the conclusion that there is this kind of veiling, right? There's this veil of illusion between us and the world that causes strife, and um and 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 then maybe that veil is actually just a veil on the fact that it's connected at an even deeper level, and that or maybe you take it into a direction of humility. But anyway, and then stuff changes with the scientific method, and then now suddenly we have an understanding that, like, no, we have this brain, like, we're getting sensory inputs through our body, and like if you sever the nerves, then you can't feel things. And we learn how light works and how the eye works, and then we learn perception might be totally illusory, right? And then we have this in this people in the modern times, they say, oh, what if we're a brain in a vat? And then you talk about, this is the Matrix. Anyway, all right, we're gonna keep reading. By crossing into a space whose curvature is no longer that of the real, nor that of truth, the era of simulation is inaugurated by a liquidation of all referentials. I'm going to read that sentence one more time. By crossing into a space whose curvature is no longer that of the real, nor that of truth, the era of simulation is inaugurated by a liquidation of all referentials. Worse, with their artificial resurrection in the system of signs, a material more malleable than meaning, in that it lends itself to all systems of equivalences, to all binary oppositions, to all combinatory algebra. It is no longer a question of imitation, nor duplication, nor even of parity. It is a question of substituting the signs of the real for the real. That is to say, of an operation of deterring every real process via its operational double, a programmatic, metastable, perfectly descriptive machine that offers all the signs of the real and short circuits all its vicissitudes. Never again will the real have the chance to produce itself. Such is the vital function of the model in a system of death, or rather of anticipated resurrection, that no longer even gives the event a chance of a death. A hyperreal, henceforth, sheltered from the imaginary, and from any distinction between the real and the imaginary, leaving room only for the orbital recurrence of models in the simulated generation of differences. So how can we think about what is being said here? A kind of shallow point, right? Is that people make this observation. So this is a kind of philosophical articulation of a kind of vulgar idea, and by vulgar I mean it in the sense that, like, it's a common thing that people bring up, and it's not necessarily, doesn't mean it's wrong, but it doesn't mean it's like fully articulated. But like this idea that, like, we can't come up with anything new. We can't come up with anything new anymore, right? We are just busy making the 17th remake of the Ghostbusters movie, and we we have all these kind of multiverses where we combine things, right? And we have all these kind of genres. We have, everything is subdivided into more and more micro genres, and these are all and these are kind of, they're stuck in this system of eternally bringing them back, and now there is there is only the orbital recurrence of models and the simulated generation of differences. So, like, the simulated generations of differences, you could, this is this is a little controversial to make this statement, but like, people, this is why, this is the kind of insight that exists inside people making the observation that, like, oh, we're doing a remake and we're adding a minority into it. Why don't you just come up with a new character for them? And all that, right? Of course, these people this statement is, the point of this statement is to be mean and prejudiced, and that they feel uncomfortable seeing things that aren't themselves. But it isn't just that. It isn't just that. It isn't just that. And, because I think that there is some real truth in that it is a simulated generation of difference. You say, oh, we're doing it different this time because now we have included this thing. And we've kind of shuffled up the symbols around this thing, but we haven't really generated anything new. And the and so here's oh my God, every sentence in here is so wonderful. So it is a question of substituting the signs of the real for the real. That is to say, an operation deterring every real process via its operational double, a programmatic, metastable, perfectly descriptive machine that offers all the signs of the real and short circuits all its vicissitudes. Now, so there is this other element of talking about representation. There's this other Ecclesiastes. He's 1:9. Is that there's nothing new under the sun? I don't have my Bible with me here. I'm gonna pull it up right now, and I'm using my phone to oh my goodness, my phone's probably gonna die in the middle of this because I don't have anything plugged in to it. In fact, and so okay. So there's another way. There's thinking about making remakes with representation is another way to think about this. And the point isn't that it's bad to put minorities in things. I think it's good. I'm trans. I like when there's trans people and stuff. And I think that it's very important for people to be able to see themselves in popular media, but also popular media is a mind control operation. Anyway, blah, 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 I hate Disney. Okay. So, but it is a description of it is a very good example of a process that is happening throughout all of reality. Like, at least according to Baudrillard, it is of all of reality has been taken over by this process that has doubled everything and only repeats the past and like is producing like these models that to our brains seem like they are oh, I hit the mic, shoot. That like they produce like they're in a more and more exact copy. So this is the other thing about representation, right? Is that like in the real world, not everyone's white. In the real world, there's gay people. In the real world, stuff like that, right? And so it is a more and more exact representation. But yet at the same time, it's a less real representation of reality because the art itself is more and more removed from like the actual experience of being human in a way, even though we've included this kind of symbolic part of it. Like there's these layers of symbols that are moving around that seem like they're cutting more and more into the real, but at the same time, like we've lost track of like this kind of movement where art cuts back into reality, because this is what Baudrillard is saying. I don't know if I fully agree with him, but it's important to be able to think about this. That because now we like it isn't this kind of process, this holy process of kind of like grasping at the soul. It's like this more and more kind of exact representation of things, but in a way that like isn't. It doesn't make you go, oh yeah. It doesn't make you like. It doesn't challenge you on the inside to find something new because according to him, there's nothing new to find anymore. We have been emptied out of the spirit of discovering things beyond ourselves. We have been emptied out of this horizon defined, and now we only have just kind of symbols moving around in the abstract and inside of us. And our consciousness is defined by this because we can't think anything else, he asserts. Let's read it a little bit more. The divine irreverence of images. To dissimulate is to pretend not to have what one has. To simulate is to feign to have what one doesn't have. One implies a presence, the other an absence. But it is more complicated than that because simulating is not pretending. Whoever fakes an illness can simply stay in bed and make everyone believe he is ill. Whoever simulates an illness produces in himself some of the symptoms. Wait. Okay, fake versus simulate. Okay, I understand. Therefore, pretending or dissimulating, leaves the principle of reality intact. The difference is always clear. It is simply masked, whereas simulation threatens the difference between the true and the false, the real and the imaginary. Is the simulator sick or not, given that he produces true symptoms? Objectively, one cannot treat him as being either ill or not ill. Psychology and medicine stop at this point, forestalled by the illness's henceforth undiscoverable truth. For if any symptom can be produced, and can no longer be taken as a fact of nature, then every illness can be considered as simulatable and simulated. And medicine loses its meaning, since it only knows how to treat real illnesses according to their objective causes. Psychosomatics evolves in a dubious manner at the borders of the principle of illness. As to psychoanalysis, it transfers the symptom of the organic order to the unconscious order. The latter is new and taken for real, more real than the other. But why would simulation be at the gates of the unconscious? Why couldn't the work of the unconscious be produced in the same way as any old symptom of classical medicine? Dreams already are. Okay. So, the So the thing about simulation and the no difference in reality. So one thing that I think about to kind of think about this, and once again, this does not exhaust the meaning, and this isn't, but it's a very it's an example that gets you to start thinking about this. Is people who are really obsessed with like the ethics of fictional characters, and people who take it really, really far, especially. So like people who will assert that like you like the consent of a fictional character matters. And I'm not even like trying to be edgy talking about like I don't know. But what I mean is like I mean that there are people who will say that like your gay Captain America fan fiction is immoral because he's straight. Like there are people who and there are people who will um um there are um what's another good example of this? um how can I put this? um like like there's this um when you lose the distinction between like this kind of like symbolic process that is happening and the things that we're experiencing in the real world, like the things in the symbolic process start taking on really, really heavy, intense meanings, because because that's where people imagine like that's what's real to them. That's the only thing they can imagine being real. So yeah. Another example is people on Twitter talk about people on Twitter like getting really, 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 really uptight about the definition of different queer labels, right? So this is um these are no longer reference to, these are no longer like charming encapsulations of this thing that's happening in the real world where people are having these kind of interactions or whatever. Oh my god, no! Again. Shoot. Oh goodness. Ah. Oh my goodness. All right, let me fix it. Oh, are we back? Oh. Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming in and having comments too. I think that I might be I might be I think I might be commenting a little bit too much. Um uh uh yeah, I thought that that was kind of I thought that that was kind of a cute element of it, which was also it's kind of a cute element of it. But I think I might be making too many comments on it because the thing is I think that I'm actually the points that I'm making are actually maybe they're not as radical as I'm think I'm reducing his stuff a little bit for how radical it is. Um, and it is maybe helpful to give these examples because they kind of ground him. But he's I don't know if I fully agree with his conclusions, but they're more intense than maybe the things I'm saying. Okay. Uh Okay, because even when I'm talking about this queer experience, I'm implying that there are still that being gay still means anything other than saying words on the internet. Maybe he's right. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe maybe trans is when you post ugly flags on Twitter. Maybe trans is when uh maybe trans is tweets. Even if I said that being trans is kissing girls or whatever. Well, that's being gay. Whatever. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. I don't know who's I don't know who's going to be watching this in the future. I think I'm going to post this on YouTube. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. Anyway, the even if I were to imply that being trans is when you're taking hormones, you're being weird. You're taking hormones. You're being weird. Your family's saying things. You say stuff like, I have pronouns. I have I have colored hair. I have piercings. I have changes in my body or whatever. These are words that I'm saying on the internet. Are they? Do they? Am I talking about anything? Or am I talking? You know? Now it just sounds like I'm being fake deep. Let's keep reading. Um uh Hello, Vector Troll XD. We are reading Simulacra and Simulation and making comments on it. Okay. The Certainly, the psychiatrist purports that for every form of mental alienation, there is a particular order in the succession of symptoms of which the simulator is ignorant, and in the absence of which the psychiatrist would not be deceived. This, which dates from 1865, in order to safeguard the principle of a truth at all costs, and to escape the interrogation posed by simulation, the knowledge that truth, reference, and objective cause have ceased to exist. Now, what can medicine do with what floats on either side of illness, on either side of health? Oh, hey, thank you. Thank you for following. The floats on either side of health with the duplication of illness in the discourse that is no longer either true or false. What can psychoanalysis do with the duplication of the discourse of the unconscious in the discourse of simulation that can never again be unmasked, since it is not false either? What can the army do about simulators? Traditionally, it masks them and punishes them according to a clear principle of identification. Today, it can discharge a very good simulator as exactly equivalent to a real homosexual, a heart patient, or a madman. Even military psychology draws back from Cartesian certainties and hesitates to make the distinction between true and false, between the produced and the authentic symptom. If he is this good at acting crazy, it's because he is. Oh, yeah, and yeah, I am, yeah, I'm definitely predigesting the text because I've read it before, and I have these. yeah. And I want to do that a little bit because the thing is, you can't just read it because copyright. And I do want to contextualize it, but anyway, I don't know if I'm probably doing it too much. Um, but yeah, and I would encourage you to take this, if go read it yourself and draw your own conclusions. Um, uh, and read what other people who were smarter than me and know more about philosophy and have been kind of into it for longer have to say about it. Um, I, uh, Nor is military psychology mistaken in this regard. In this sense, all crazy people simulate, and this lack of distinction is the worst kind of subversion. It is against this lack of distinction that classical reason armed itself in all its categories, but it is what today again outflanks them, submerging the principle of truth. So it's against this lack of distinction that classical reason armed itself in all its categories. Now, um, what does he mean by that? Because the Anyway, beyond medicine and the army, favored terrains of simulation, the question returns to religion in the simulacrum of divinity. I forbade that there be any simulacra in the temples because the divinity that animates nature can never be represented. So this is the no graven images, no graven images. Indeed, it can be, but what becomes of the divinity when it reveals itself in icons, when it is multiplied in simulacra? Does it remain the supreme power that is simply incarnated in images and as a visible theology? Or does it volatilize itself in the simulacra that alone deploy their power and pomp of fascination, the visible machinery of icons substituted for the pure and intelligible idea of God? This is precisely what was feared by iconoclasts, whose millennial quarrel is still with us today. This is precisely because they predicted this omnipotence of simulacra, the faculty simulacra have of effacing God from the conscience of man, in the destructive, annihilating truth that they allow to appear, that deep down God never existed, and that only the simulacrum ever existed, even that God himself was never anything but his own simulacrum. From this came their urge to destroy the images. If they could have believed that these images only obfuscated or masked the Platonic idea of God, there would have been no reason to destroy them. One can live with the idea of distorted truth. But their metaphysical despair came from the idea that the image couldn't conceal anything at all. That these images were in essence not images, such as an original model would have them, but perfect simulacra, forever radiant with their own fascination. Thus the death of the divine referential must be exorcised. Thus this death of the divine referential must be exorcised at all costs. Interestingly, so this is actually what he's saying here is actually kind of similar to Hegel's reading of what Christianity means. That that the incarnation, in a way, the truth of Christianity is that the incarnation reveals the truth that God has, the transcendent God is gone and never was there. That like the that it is just this thing that exists, and this is what the death of God on the cross means. And actually this is a very it's worth learning about. This is actually not a this is not a good footnote. This was a horrible explanation of that. But iconoclasm. Um, One can see that the iconoclasts, whom one accuses of disdaining and negating images, were those who accorded them their true value, in contrast to the iconoclasts who only saw reflections in them and were content to venerate a filigree god. What does filigree mean? Actually, I don't know what's going to come up if I open a new tab. I'm not going to start. I'll figure it out what it means later. In the chat, if one of y'all know what filigree means. On the other hand, one can say that the icon worshippers were the most modern minds, the most adventurous, because in the guise of having God become apparent in the mirror of images, they were already enacting his death and his disappearance in the epiphany of his representations, which perhaps they already knew no longer represented anything, that they were purely a game, but that it was therein the great game lay, knowing also that it is dangerous to unmask images, since they dissimulate the fact that there is nothing behind them. This was the approach of the Jesuits, who founded their politics on the virtual disappearance of God and on the worldly and specular manipulation of consciences, the evanescence of God and the epiphany of power, the end of transcendence, which now only serves as an alibi for a strategy altogether free of influences and signs. Behind the baroqueness of images hides the eminence of the eminent grise of politics. Gris? I've seen Gris. This way, the stake will always have been the filigree. Filigree is intricate metalwork used to ornament metal, usually in gold and silvery jewelry. Oh, okay, yeah. So, okay, yeah. So it's like literally the yeah. Okay, that's the like gold background that's in like Orthodox icons. Yeah. Okay. Um, um, the This way, the stake will always have been the murderous power of images, the murderers of the real, murderers of their own model, as the Byzantine icons could be those of divine identity. To this murderous power is opposed that of representations as a dialectical power, the visible and intelligible meditation of the real. No, mediation, excuse me. And Western faith, all Western faith and good faith became engaged in this wager on representation, that a sign could refer to the depth of meaning, that a sign could be exchanged for meaning, and that something could guarantee this exchange. God, of course. But what if God himself can be simulated? That is to say, can be reduced to the signs that constitute faith. Then the whole system becomes weightless. It is no longer itself anything but a gigantic simulation. Not the unreal, but a simulacrum. That is to say, never exchanged for the real, but exchanged for itself. In an I'm sorry, is my sniffling coming across in the microphone? My nose is like really bad tonight. I'm so sorry if it is. In an uninterrupted, I'm like Zizek. I'm doing real I'm doing real philosophy because I'm sniffling like Zizek. The not unreal, but a simulacrum. That is to say, never exchanged for the real, but exchanged for itself in an uninterrupted circuit without reference or circumference. Such is simulation, insofar as it is opposed to representation. Representation stems from the principle of the equivalence of the sign and of the real. Even if this equivalence is utopian, it is a fundamental axiom. Simulation, on the contrary, stems from the utopia of the principle of equivalence, from the radical negation of the sign as value. From the radical negation of the sign as value, from the sign as the reversion and the death sentence of every reference. Whereas representation attempts to absorb simulation by interpreting it as a false representation, simulation envelops the whole edifice of representation itself as a simulacrum. Such would be the successive phases of the image. It is the reflection of a profound reality. And this is a part that people quote a lot from Baudrillard. They make charts about it. It is the reflection of a profound reality. It masks and denatures a profound reality. It masks the absence of a profound reality. It has no relation to any reality whatsoever. It is its own pure simulacrum. Okay, now this is something we gotta do notes on. Okay, Okay, so um, so the first thing I want to make a note about is I wanted to. Oh no! I don't understand. I have never had problems with the camera before on any of these streams, and now suddenly today, it is just absolutely constant. It is just this program keeps crashing. Do I need to update it? Hasn't been updated. All right. Whatever. I've never had a crash like this before, and now it just keeps doing it. 25%. Man, this phone is pretty resilient for what it's doing. All right. Oh, we're not gonna get there. We're not. There's no chance we're getting through this first essay tonight. Um. uh. Okay. Okay, we're gonna get to the end of this section. Oh. We're gonna get to the end of this section. We're gonna talk about this. Okay, let's read to the end of this section. Let's make the little chart. Everyone loves the stages of the image. Everyone loves this. It's in all the summaries. And then I'm gonna talk about Marx. Okay, because this is him. This is actually like he disavows Marx, but this actually is Marx makes more sense. Okay, okay. Such would be the successive phases of the image, the reflection of a profound reality. It masks and denatures a profound reality. It masks the absence of a profound reality. It has no relation to any reality whatsoever. It is its own pure simulacrum. In the first case, the image is a good appearance, representation of the sacramental order. In the second, it is an evil appearance. It is of the order of maleficence. I don't know why I said that word like that. In the third, it plays at being an appearance. It is of the order of sorcery. In the fourth, it is no longer of the order of appearances, but of simulation. The transition from signs that dissimulate something to signs that dissimulate that there is nothing mark a decisive turning point. The first reflects the theology of truth and secrecy, to which the notion of ideology still belongs. Oh, we're gonna have to go. Marx, we're gonna have to come back to it. Okay. The second inaugurates the era of simulation, of simulacra, and of simulation, in which there is no longer a God to recognize his own, no longer a last judgment to separate the false from the true, the real from its artificial resurrection, as everything is already dead and resurrected in advance. Oh man, I gotta read that paragraph one more time. The transition from signs that dissimulate something to signs that dissimulate that there is nothing marks a decisive turning point. The first represents the theology of truth and secrecy. The second inaugurates the era of simulacra and of simulation, in which there is no longer a God to recognize his own, no longer a last judgment to separate the false from the true, the real from its artificial resurrection, and everything is already dead and resurrected in advance. When the real is no longer what it was, nostalgia assumes its full meaning. There is a plethora of myths of origin, of signs of reality, a plethora of truth, of secondary objectivity and authenticity, escalation of the true, of lived experience, resurrection of the figurative where the object and substance have disappeared, panic-stricken production of the real and the referential, parallel to and greater than the panic of material production. This is how simulation appears in the phase that concerns us, a strategy of the real, of the neo-real and the hyper-real, that everywhere is the double, a strategy of deterrence. All right, so um, to return to the earlier example of representation, um, in the sense, we gotta be careful, but we're talking about all sorts of representation here. Representation in the sense of you put the uh, thank you. Um, to return to the earlier um note about representation in movies, where you put the minorities in the movies, which is a good thing mostly. But so the idea is so we're trying to put the real back. We're trying to put the real back. We're trying so hard. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. We know we're you know what we're gonna put the gays. We're gonna put the gays in the movie, and that means that we're gonna get back. We're gonna get back to the point where reality exists. No, it broke again. We're so close. We're so close. And once again, reminder that I am a trans woman, and I do think that representation is good, and I think it's better when people can see themselves in things. And I do like when they're gay people in movies, and I do like when there's black people in movies, etc. Oh my goodness, I keep pressing the thing. Um, Also, I don't know if I responded to your comment, Vector Troll, but thank you. Um, oh my goodness. Um, no, come on, baby, come on, baby, come on. I need you again. Hello, welcome in. Oh, my model broke, and I'm trying to fix her when we wrap this stream up. I'm gonna wrap this stream up at this on this last point because I don't want to. I don't have the time to keep going through it tonight, or at least I don't have the energy. And I'm, uh, although I don't know, maybe if I for some reason I had enough people in here, but oh come on, analyze weight chain. In the world is that? Shows which processes are using. Okay, how do I okay. On Windows 11, how do you open Task Manager as a admin? Um Task Manager or run as administrator. What in the world do you mean operation denied? What do you mean operation denied? I'm just trying to I'm just trying to end a task, buddy. Come on. I'm gonna have to take a different strategy with this. Well, okay, well, until I don't want to restart my computer right now. And so until the time at which um and so until the time at which this the camera app decides to start working again, we're just going to talk with me looking like this. Or let's reset her. All right. She will just stare at us straight on. So, all right. So, well, the thing is, I don't know if you've I mean, I've done a number of streams before. I've done a number of streams before. This is my first time streaming this specifically. But I have never had issues like this with my model during any of my streams. And I don't know why it's doing it now. I don't know what it means. I've got drop frames too. Oh. Huh. Maybe I need to investigate. I need to investigate what the dealio is. Okay, anyway. So, I want to talk about how strange of a concept abstract value is, because we don't really think about this. We don't really digest how weird value. What is value? What is it? What is value? What is it value? What do we think when we think about value? We think about worth. Maybe. You might think about kind of transcendental values. You might think about the good, the true, the beautiful. You might think about Huh. Well, yeah, maybe. Oh, what is going on with it? What is this? Now there's something going on with my... Oh, there we go. I fixed it. Okay, there was something going on with my tablet pen. You might think about the good, the true, and the beautiful. You might think about use value. Oh, nope. Go back. Nope. You might think. Oh, you might think about use value, right? Something has a usefulness in the world. It causes some kind of effect. And then this kind of makes you think about, oh, what about exchange value, right? So exchange value is the really key thing here. So okay. So okay, so let's well, she's kind of stuck now. So let's put her over here. Let's put her over here. Um okay. Um okay. So okay, now that I'm not bound by her, I can actually move around in my chair a little bit. Um so let's talk about value. Okay. So in the text, um okay. Um so uh where's the... Okay. So what does it mean when something has value? We value things in the world um, for some reason. They have some reference to something else that we care about, right? And so that, these things could be, it has some sort of maybe an intrinsic value, right? That like, oh well, you can't put a price on this. You can't put a price on this. Maybe, like, I don't know, something from like a sentimental value from your family or a personal experience, or has a use value. Your car is worth has a value to it because it gets you places, or maybe something has value because of the good, the true, and the beautiful. So the good is, this is a kind of this is kind of goodness points kind of to intrinsic value, sort of, or it might point to something being good at something like use value. And now truth is this can point to an inner truth, like something having like a sentimental truth about an experience of yours, and it might point to a use value of, oh, it's, science has a lot of use in truth, right? um and beautiful, but um but ultimately, like, these are usually the designation of these terms. These are the higher things, right? Like, um there's this kind of feedback, but ultimately, like, the thing about the good, the true, and the beautiful is that they have value in themselves, and like, because we ultimately, like we say, if you examine the anyway, that's getting way too we're getting too traditional. We're getting too traditional. Okay, but now we need to talk about exchange value. So commodities. Oh no, we're giving the game away too much. Okay, so um, so you have in the world, you have um you have things that exist, um that people kind of give to each other. You have You have, I don't know, let's say you've got you have food, right? Let's um so let's say we got a carrot. We got a carrot here, right? We got food, right? And then we have um over here, um we've got like we've got like a sculpture of a woman, like of the kind that you'd find in like ancient Mesopotamian ruins, where they're nice and thick, you know. Um, right? We have these two things. We have an object of art, an object of desire, and we have an object of physical need. What do these two things have to do with each other? What do these two things have to do with each other? What do these two things have to do with each other? The answer is kind of just about nothing, right? Like, so, you can judge a food based on other foods. Um, you can judge a food based on other foods. So you say, okay, well, this carrot has some amount of value, in that you can eat it, like it gives you some kind of nutrition, it has some kind of taste, and that's like that's like it's like equivalent, with like other foods. You have a bag, you got a bag of rice, um, over here, right? Um, you got a bag of rice. These two things make sense to compare to each other, right? Um, and maybe someone over here has got another statue, um, but it's like made of gold or something, right? So it's shiny, it's pretty, it's shiny, it's pretty. It's got this kind of extra precious element to it. It's not gonna fade with time in the same way, you know? And then like there's this kind of relationship between these two things. But these two things don't really have anything to do with each other. And there is in so there prior to the event of capitalism, there is always money and there's always exchange. But what is fundamental is that you have items that people are exchanging for other items. And so there is you have commodities exchanged for other commodities, and money is a medium of kind of exchange, but the money is the subordinate moment of the process, right? So what really matters are um silly. Get out. Oh, I can't click the buttons. Okay, whatever. Um what really matters are the things, right? We have these things um that are moving, that fill some need for beauty or food, right? We have things that are moving around. And then money exists to kind of just facilitate these things. But then there is a moment when this whole process shifts, and suddenly we go from money being the subordinate moment to money being the thing that drives the process. So like it's so we have like the subject, um like this is the subject, in the sense that like this is what it's really about, is these things, right? And then you have money, which is kind of is like the it's part of the process. It is like a kind of subordinated part of the process that like um that like the so you say this is, so the carrot is, so this is me trying to explain Hegelian dialectic, because it's very important. This is incredibly important. Carrot is $5, right? Carrot is $5. You have the subject. Carrot is what it's about. And then the $5 is the object. And so you have this equivalence that's being set up between them. But the carrot is the thing that matters, right? So we have, and you're moving from money back to another, but then as there is, then there is this thing that happens where so states are always struggling to maintain stability and control, and they need some sense of kind of security, and there's also this process that is happening where there's the accumulation of money and happening, and then at some point along the way, and I'm not going to try to get into the specifics of how this happens too much, but we know that it has happened, and you know that it has happened, is that money, someone gets the idea that, so if you have to, in previous modes of production, it is the case that you would produce to meet people's needs. You would make these things, and this is, you would make these things as people needed them. And like, if there needed to be expansion, it was often through like, for example, the king would have excess. The king would show off the wealth of the nation or whatever. But then someone gets the idea that like, well, someone gets the idea. It's not the case, but there's this thing that happens where money becomes the subject of the process. It is money reproducing itself, over and over and over and increasing, right? The supply of money in the world is always increasing. The inflation or what inflation in like the actual money supply is increasing. But the reason that they're doing this is because there is actually more money being produced through the process of capitalism. Like there is this magical thing where there is surplus value. What is value? So this is getting back to the money. So what is the equivalent between these two things? Value, abstract value. So money is this magical thing that comes to say, how do we convert between a little statue and a carrot? What do they have in common? Money comes in, and suddenly we have this medium by which we can say these two things have an equivalence. Money is value in the abstract. Money is a quantitative representation in the world of like when we see a dollar sign value, and then we can say different things that are worth that dollar sign value. Suddenly we have taken this kind of magic of what all these things mean to us, and we've put them on this flat plane where they all are the same thing. If everything can be money, then everything is understood by money, because there is nothing else that makes sense of the entire world in a systematic way like money does. And because of this power, it begins to take over everything and reproduce itself and create more and more of itself. Because that is it's the nature of money. The nature of money and abstract value is that it spreads out throughout everything and kind of empties things out of their of like the previous like mystical truth that they have, and reveals them all to be a number. Everything in the world progresses and becomes numbers, but it isn't just numbers, because there's other kinds of capital. This is where everything becomes symbols. Everything becomes words, right? There is this triumph of representations of all kinds. Representations of all kinds, because like money itself is like the most paradigmatic form of it, but it is this triumph of it is this triumph of universalized abstract value, which is what God is supposed to represent. God is supposed to contain the good and the true and the beautiful. God is universal abstract value. But the thing about, but yet, money seems to emerge and to show the truth that the abstract value isn't up there somewhere. It's right here in front of us, and we have the power to tap into it with money and science. And but then when we do this, we kill God, right? We kill God in our consciousness, and and so, but there is something very strange and mysterious about the fact that we can put dollar sign value on things that have nothing to do with each other and transfer them in between each other. Like, it is a radical change in our consciousness to be able to conceive of things in this way versus the past. And you really really need to understand this. Like, I think, I think this is really critical. Okay. So, okay, so let's talk about the now we've covered all this stuff. Now let's talk about the procession of the simulacra, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay. Okay. Um. Okay. So, um, we have this procession of the phases of the image. The image, because he's talking about the icon, but we could also talk about just representation, um, in general. Um, okay. So we have the sacramental maleficence, sacramental order, order of maleficence, order of sorcery, and simulation. Okay. So in the sacramental order, we have um, um, we have the paradigmatic example is we have Plato's cave, right? So the idea is that somewhere out there, there is this really real thing. There is this really real thing that is the truth of God or of the world, right? This really real thing, and that um, that we are kind of immersed in these images around us that are well, actually, this might be a better of example of the second thing. Well, okay, well, let's just work with this. Work with this. The fact that I'm actually choosing a bad example. So this is sort of actually, you can think about it in one of these. It's actually kind of the second thing. Can we? Can we? I'm putting way too much effort into this. Okay, so in the sacramental order, we have um we have we have the real, and it has its mirror in the image. Um um and so for example, we'd have some, like, we have a statue here of some god, right? And the idea is that, like, okay, well, this statue is um this statue, like, really kind of manifests this god in some way. And if you're in the presence of this statue, you have this connection with them, right? There's this connection that it's this connection, right? That there is something really real out there, and that we have something that kind of brings you close to it. Um, and right, and then in the second order, the order of maleficence, you have the idea of the cave, of Plato's cave, or more radical ideas, like when people think about, like, the demiurge, um, or like when people think about Maya, right? There's this idea that, like, we have that there is something really real out there, right? There's still, there's still thought thinking itself, there's still God, there's still the idea. There's this thing out there that's pure, this pure thing, and that we're getting kind of we have things that exist in the world, and when we try to pin it down, it isn't really it, and you have to turn towards it to really kind of have any sense of it there. But it does really exist. It does really exist, right? um and there in blah, 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 blah. Okay, so um and so that's the second order. And then in third order, right, um the idea is that there is nothing there, and we're trying to um we're trying to hide the fact that there is nothing there. Um, and the um and oh, okay. Um, And um and I'll come back to the Marxism and ideology. But and the and this is so this third order is in some ways kind of the Hegelian idea. That and this is in this is sort of the idea of psychoanalysis of the unconscious as being right there on the surface, right? Like there isn't this isn't there isn't and this is kind of it's not depth psychoanalysis. It's like it's like this kind of it's that there's something that's kind of already there. It's the fact like how can I explain this? The because people post little images of this, but I don't think anyone really thinks about what the movement of these four mean. The um how do I want to explain this? The okay. Um so we can think about this as like um we can think about it and we can think about it as like um this progression is that like in um the movement from from sorcery to simulation, which is like uh is like the movement from like a postmodern, shoot, I shouldn't say postmodern, like a kind of expressionist like breakdown of a horse, a picture of a horse that is just like an expressionist breakdown that like makes a horse look like all sorts of kind of ways. Like it's like this kind of playful um it's this kind of playful exercise in appearance. You can imagine I feel like I should. Okay, if I had an example, it'd probably. I don't know. I'm gonna do it. Versus in simulation, you have My Little Pony, right? Like this is they have progressed. You know, they have some kind of. It seems like they're supposed to have some kind of relationship to horses, but they really don't, right? They're just like they're kind of, you know, especially you think about the fact that we're on like, you know, the fifth generation of My Little Pony, right? These are commentaries upon commentaries upon commentaries, and the reel of the horse is totally lost. And this isn't the same thing as like, you know, if you're doing this kind of avant-garde painting of a horse is like, you know, the kind of the idea behind the reason that you need to make it so crazy and avant-garde is that who cares about a horse, right? Because the thing is, in a classical period, you could make a painting of a horse that is just this beautiful, direct depiction of how beautiful the horse is, and the idea is that you're capturing something of the real of the horse, and that there is something that matters there that you're capturing. But then when you start getting kind of clever and weird with it, you're what you're really essentially saying is who cares about the horse? Who cares about the horse? There's nothing. It's nothing. It's just who cares about the horse? We're just making images, right? But then when you move into simulation, like you're not even like the you're not even having to kind of like feign at acting like you have a reference to the horse, right? Like you're when you make this kind of avant-garde painting, you're betraying something about like that you actually don't care about the horse. Whereas but when you move to the My Little Pony, you are just like it is nothing. It is nothing but image. And okay. So the movement from 2 to 3 is he says that 2 is still ideology and that we've moved past ideology. So by ideology here, he's talking about Marxist ideology. So the idea of Marx, of like ideology and Marxism, is that there is this apparatus of the state that is basically like that you have like in a society you have a form of production, like what makes a society run, where do needs get filled, what makes things happen, right? And that this is the primary thing, and this is the base, is you have something that needs to happen, and so you have some real, right? The real in the case here is that there's production, right? Or even for someone like I don't know, some other people who are considered postmodern, like I don't know, like Foucault or something. Like there's like power, right? There's power, and but there's production, right? There's production, and then you have people who are seeing that there is this apparatus that produces a consciousness that thinks that there are things that are going on with the world that actually have nothing to do with what's actually going on, right? That kind of is intent, that kind of hides that there's a reality to turn to where you understand that there is a real of that there's this process of control and production going on, and that you can unpack the content of something that you're being told. You can unpack the content and find out what's being used to control you, and what's being lied about, and what's being hidden. And this is his take on psychoanalysis, is that this is also trying to unveil hidden meanings. And then this movement here is the idea that this, and so he's saying that he's asserting that the notion of ideology belongs to a kind of world that no longer exists, and that we no longer have a real and a reflection of the real. We moved from that into an order where that thing isn't even there anymore. That thing isn't even there anymore. And the thing, the stuff on the walls of Plato's caves is actually like is, instead of that being a distraction from the fact that that's there, it's a distraction from the fact that it's not there. And instead we are, and so the idea is that it does, it's now playing with making us feel that like, oh, it actually, in a way, it invokes this in a more strong, direct sense, but it's a distraction. And then his idea is that eventually we can even do away with that, and it's just images playing with other images to infinity, and that has and that it's impossible for us to kind of get out of that. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I don't know who's if anybody's you still here. If you want to make a comment before I go out, I really appreciate you. Uh, oh yeah, there's a I don't remember what all was in this chapter about the animals. I think actually I actually remember being affected by this. Did I is this one of the things that made me go vegetarian? Um, Even though he actually like that's actually not um what I think that yeah. Yeah. I yeah. Oh, this text is so good. Anyway, um okay. I think I'm going to get ready to go. We read a few pages. All right. This was a fun experiment. I'm probably going to do this again. I had a lot of fun. Um Good night. Uh Baudrillard.